Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk you through a design I came up with while I was playing around with some Bargain Bead Box bits. Everything I use will be in the description box below. And I'm just going to start. I was basically playing around with a bit design and I came up with the idea for an anchor. I was looking at possibly making a sextant, but I decided that the anchor was a better fit for me. I had more ideas to do with the anchor. The first thing I'm doing here is finding my center and like the whole center of the piece, just so I can be fairly even and get things nice and centered. And now I'm going to start building my anchor design. I'm going to use the toggle clasps that we got from the bead box as part of the anchor, and I'm using this focal piece that they sent us to make the anchor, and I think you can see it starting to take shape already. Everything else I haven't fully decided yet, but I'm working it out as I go. I got all these lovely crystal bits to use and I'm just deciding what I want where. I end up deciding I like the look of these oval crystals better, and I grab out these 4mm and 6mm crystals to use in the piece as well. And I'm literally just laying it out, deciding how I'd like things to go. I will leave links for anything that I can. Anything that I can't will still be in the description box, but just won't have a link. And now I need to work on defining the rest of the shape. To do the middle part, I decided to use our rope barrel spacers that we received in the Bargain Bead Box, and I'm literally just going to line those up on my needle so I can work out how many I'm going to need for this space here. As you can see here, this is just one too many, so I'm just going to pop one off, which I already did. I'm popping one other one that fell off back on, and now that's absolutely perfect. So this is exactly where I want everything to sit. Now I figured that out, I just want to mark everything out and make sure I put it all back in the right place, and I'm going to use a very small amount of glue to glue it down. To do my markings here, I'm just using a white charcoal pencil. What I want to do first of all is I'm going to cut out this little circle here, because you will see why later what I'm going to do and why I need a hole here, but for now I just like you to go ahead and cut that little hole. Once you are happy with your hole, we can move on to the gluing stage. I'm using my regular E6000 Plus. You can use your regular glue. Again, I'm only using a small amount just to help hold everything down while I'm sewing. When you are completely happy with the layout, just wait a couple of hours for this to dry so it's not moving. So I am back, this is all lovely and dry, and now it's time to crack out the thread and needle. We're going to do our sewing now. I'm going to thread up fingertip to fingertip of this black Nymo thread, and I'm using a size 10 beading needle, and the first thing I'm going to attach is these sew-on crystals. The sew-on crystals are fantastically easy to attach because, as the name suggests, they are sew-on. They usually have 4 holes in which you can use to attach them, so I don't feel it's necessary to play this slowly. I will speed up one of the crystals and then I will skip over attaching the second crystal. Now that the 2 larger crystals are attached, I'm going to work down to the curve of the anchor and attach this part. As you can see, I'm working my way across with small stitches, as if you just bring the thread across and you have large amounts of thread just crossing the back, this can compromise the integrity of the work. It doesn't always, but I just like to take that extra step. To start with, I'm going to be going in between the lines. If you look very carefully, you can see that there is small metal strips attaching the bars together. I'm going to use my thread to go over these bars right there. Now I'm going to continue to do this all the way along and then back again. Sometimes it can be a bit of a fiddle to find the hole, but it doesn't usually take too long. Well, I am back and I have gone all the way along and back again using the same bars. And now I'm going to work my way back into the center, again sticking within the design, just to help keep the integrity of my piece. In the middle here, while I'm over here, I want to attach this 6mm crystal. You will do this in the exact same manner as you do with the larger sew-on crystals. It just doesn't need the glue because it's far smaller. Once I'm happy with how many times I've gone through that and attached it, it's time to work on the center line. And what I am going to do is come up at the bottom here. I'm going to add all of the beads I'm going to be using, and then I'm going to back stitch them in afterwards to secure them. You can see here once I've attached them all that there is actually space for another spacer bead, so I will grab that out and attach that as well. You want to make this line as straight as you possibly can. And like I said, once I have attached it this way, I will back stitch it in. Once I'm happy with how straight and secure that is, I'm going to work on securing the toggle clasp, and to do that I'm just going to come right close to this design and add a couple of stitches, because the stitch will completely disappear against the design. I will add 2 stitches to each side, but one at a time. To cover the loops, I'm going to use another barrel spacer. To do that, I'm going to come out the very top of the top hole. I'm going to add the bead, and I'm going to re-enter at the very bottom of the bottom hole. Don't forget to go through this bead a couple of times to secure it, because it is quite heavy, large holed bead. To make everything blend in a bit better, I'm going to be using these size 10 Czech seed beads. They are silver lined clear, and I'm just going to be using a few of these to create a few bridges, starting at the bottom of the T-bar here, entering the top. I'm going to be using 2 rows of those, and then one crossing the loop of the toggle hole. Our anchor is really starting to take shape. It's looking really lovely. The next thing I'm going to do is work on straightening out the middle even further. To do that, I'm going to use this 2mm cup chain. I got this from Amazon. Again, I will leave the link for you. Any links I have, I will leave. I'm just deciding what I'd like to do with it. I end up deciding I just want it in the middle here, and I'm going to start attaching it before I cut it, just to make sure I don't cut it too short, because it's going to be very difficult for me to try and add more of these singly. To attach the cup chain, I am just going to sew in between the links and attach it that way. I would take it nice and slowly, because it can be very easy to get caught on the prongs and teeth. and just continue doing that all the way down for every link. Now I'm at the point where I believe I'm ready to cut, so I'm just going to fiddle around here and figure out at what cup I need to trim this chain. And once I'm happy with that, I just need to attach those last links. And now just do the exact same thing up the other side. Now that I'm pleased with the overall structure, I'm going to start to do a little bit of filling. I've rethreaded my needle and reattached my thread. I've decided to come down to the middle here and fill in this gap with some gunmetal coloured delicas. I am quite simply going to backstitch these in. Now I want some more definition over here upon this part of the anchor by the head of it. I want it to have a little bit more of a curve than what it's got, so I'm going to add a couple of 4mm crystals here. I'm also going to put just one delica in the corner here, just to accentuate that shape a little more. And then I will match that on the other side. And now I'm going to use small stitches again to work my way over to the left corner, where I'm going to attach a 6mm sew-on crystal in the hole there. Now that that's completed, I want to work on the spike part of the anchor here. To do that, I'm going to use these delicas, and I'm simply going to use a back stitch to, in a sense, draw this out. To get across and repeat the pattern on the other side, what I'm going to do is take these silver lined 15 Czech seed beads, and I'm going to put one in every hole along the bottom here, and I will do a couple with you and then either speed through the rest or cut it out completely. So I'm coming out of the hole, grabbing a 15 and going back through the same hole. So you want to go in every hole, repeat the hook on the other side, and I will come back with you when that's done. I have tied off and trimmed my thread. Now the next thing I would like you to do is trim around the edge of your anchor, but not right to the edge in the middle of the anchor. I would just like you to go around a rough edge when you're in the middle, but when you are at the top by the loop, that's when you want to cut nice and neat. Once you are left with something that looks similar to this, I want you to grab your chain. I only have a small amount left, so this is going to be perfect. And I'm going to arrange this and sew this in a manner where it looks like it's wrapped around the top, and then I will flow it around nicely around the body as well. I was going to go right around, but I decided not to. I still feel that this design works very well. I'm going to start with the very end of the chain here, and I am simply going to attach the end on the back side here. Now that the end is attached, I'm going to pull it through the hole, and I'm going to wind it around and attach it in the next spot, which for me is right there, and I'm just going to attach it there. Once that part's attached, hold it in place using the thread and wind it around again attaching it in the next best place. Then wind it around one final time and then attach it again, but you will want to come through the hole one more time to dangle it over the rest of the design. Now it's just time to start thinking about how you'd like to arrange it at the front, and you will need a few stitches here and there just to make sure it doesn't move around too much and get caught on other things. I'm playing around with a few ideas here before deciding how to stitch it down, and then I will just use tack stitches to tack it in place. Now that I'm happy with the length and arrangement, I'm going to go ahead and take off the amount of chain I want. I am going to leave just a small amount because I'm going to put a dangle on this at the very end. And now I just want you to tie off that thread and cut around our anchor here, remembering to be careful of the stitches. Now we are just at the stage of strengthening everything up and finishing everything off. So what I'm going to do to help me with that is I'm going to take this piece of felt here. You can use another piece of black. I chose to use grey because it was the same colour as the leather I'm going to be using, and this will help keep the leather from being too bumpy where I've added the chain around the top there, and it will also, like I say, help stiffen the piece a bit so it's not as wobbly. Don't forget to save these scraps for our scrappy earrings. I'm now going to leave this to dry for half an hour. After half an hour of drying, this has significantly stiffened, and I am quite simply going to cut around this again, and then I am going to stick it to some leather. Now if you would like to follow my brooch fitting method video, you can do that, or you can use this video. In all honesty, to be completely honest with you guys, I forgot what I was doing when I did this. I thought I was making a necklace but realised that wasn't going to work, so decided to add the brooch at last minute. But this method does still work, or like I say, I will pop a card up for the brooch fitting method video. And next it's time to stick it to the leather. Like I say, if you're going to use the brooch fitting video, you will fit the brooch first. If you're using this one, go ahead and fit your leather. This is still a fairly good way of doing the brooch fitting. I'm not using this leather, I changed to this nice black leather. And wait for this to dry and cut around it. And now it's time to edge our piece. To do this, I'm going to be using size 10 Czech seed beads, silver lined clear, and I'm going to be using a basic brick stitch edge. I will do a couple of rounds with this with you, and then I will skip past it. I will also close it up on my own as well. I will pop a card up here of my attaching Velcro method, and that has some basic edging on there for you in more detail. So I'm going to have my thread from fingertip to fingertip attached to my needle. I'm going to enter through the front because that's the way I like to work, with a seed bead attached to my needle. I'm going to come out the back, catching that leather. I'm going to go back up through that same seed bead. It is very loose to begin with, but it does tighten as we go on. Just remember to keep cinching your work in because this is quite thick by now. I have 2 layers of felt and a layer of leather. You may at some point need some pliers to help you pull this needle through. Through the front, catch both layers, catch the leather at the back and come back up through that seed bead. So meet me when you have completed your edging. I am all edged and ready. As I said, I will link a card up here, and that will be to the attaching Velcro, which will be a more in-depth edge stitch tutorial really. Now I'm going to attach the brooch back. There are a couple of ways you can do this. I'm deciding to do it long ways. The first thing you want to do is get a scrap of the same material you just used for your backing, and you want to measure out a small rectangle with enough space for stitches on either side. If you wish to skip this video completely, I do have a brooch fitting method which I will link up here as well. Once you have measured out the brooch size, you want to cut as straight and evenly as you can along the measurements. Double check that this is going to be a nice neat fit, and then you want to use your glue to cover the leather and then put it onto the brooch back, and then put the brooch back onto the back of your piece, as that will, to me, creates the better, more secure fit. As you can see, if you wanted to fit it here, that would still work because it was quite sturdy after we've added that extra layer of felt, but I am going to add it long ways. I just feel this works better, and I'm making sure the hinge is towards the top. For this bit, you really do want it to dry properly. I'm going to leave it overnight to really dry. I'm going to come back every half hour or hour though and push down just to really help get a good fit on that. I do find that the E6000 is really good for sticking this leather together, and the stitches I'm putting in will more likely end up being more for show. but I still like the way it looks. I think it looks rather professional and it does give me that extra security. So I'm just making sure it's pushed down all over, making sure that glue is evenly distributed and there's nothing stuck in there that I don't want. I am back and that back is completely dry. To start off and to help hide my tail, I'm going to go through a seed bead here and I'm going to pop my needle out the front here. You may need a hand from some pliers from time to time. Now I'm going to pull so the thread just disappears. I don't want a tail hanging out here because if I have to cut it a bit off, it will still leave a little bit of thread. So I want this tail to disappear into the workings, but slowly. And now as I continue, I just don't want to pull too hard for now. And now I just want to keep finding spaces to stitch this back onto, and this should be extremely easy. I found it very easy, but I was working with black thread and black foundation. I felt this helped a lot, but I also work within the design and around the design, and I will do a bit of this with you to show you. As you can see, I am feeling my way around, trying to get my needle to come out the back here. It can be a little fiddly from time to time, but generally it gets easier as you get the feel for where your needle needs to be. See, I'm going through 2 layers of glued felt and 2 layers of glued leather, so this is quite difficult to get through. So I will need to have help from pliers from time to time. And you can see there my thread completely disappears into the design. I'm going to give it a short tug. That thread didn't move because I didn't feel it move, but I'm making sure everything's a little tighter. And all it's about is just feeling your way around from back to front and creating a small, straight, neat stitches, and the result, I believe, is incredibly polished and professional. It can just be a little tedious, but I promise the work is worth it. Of course, you are more than welcome to completely ignore this part and just fit a brooch as you normally would. I just really like this finish and I'm just trying to get the word out there about this finish. So I am going to do this same thing all the way up and down, finding appropriate places and hidden little nooks to come out of and go into to attach this back. Just a little tip for crossing to the other side. I did this on the front because I found it easier to get underneath this row of spacer beads we added here. So I found it much easier to hide my thread there. I thought I'd just pass this little tip on to you, go under the front beads and then just back out the other side and continue. Now I have finished that, it is time to cut this thread and finish off by adding my charm. To hide the tail, I'm simply going to come through the design here. I'm going to come underneath it between the two layers and pop out next to the seed beads down there. Pull that right through, pull it nice and taut and carefully cut the thread off right at the seed bead. That's why I say carefully, because you don't want to cut the thread that's holding your seed beads. And finally, last but not least, we need to add this little charm I was talking about. I'm going to just make a simple wire wrapped loop at the end of this charm, and I'm going to add it onto the chain here just as one little dangle to really finish off the piece. Put a little bend with enough room to wrap your wire. Make the perfect size for you. I'm going to make a very small loop right at the end of my pliers and then just wrap it around. I'm going to wrap it loosely down and then a little tighter up, just because it's quite a wide hole on that bead cap. And here's our adorable little charm ready to add on to the chain here. That's why I left a little bit. I could have done with leaving a little bit more, or perhaps wire wrapping the loop straight onto here, because I made it a little bit fiddly for myself, if I'm honest. And we are done. I had an absolute ball making this and designing this. It was so much fun putting the pieces together, trying to decide how I wanted things. I hope you liked this video. I hope you got something out of it, even if you're not going to make the anchor. And I hope you will like and subscribe and join me for future videos. I'm already planning so much for the future, and I'm really enjoying the bead embroidery part of it all, especially. So I hope you will come back and see me do more of it. Thank you very much. Bye bye.